What's up? Back with another video and back with an announcement on the load shedding situation. I don't know too much about that, but as I'm watching, as I'm finding out, let's find out together. Mighty Jamie, a YouTuber that I like very much. The next Barack, that's what his old Twitter name was. I met him as well about 5 years ago on Twitter. Battling the Ronaldo Hoses, the Willem Petzers, the Roman Kaberneks, the Sihle Ngobeses, Big Daddy Liberty, your Daily Wire stable there out in Cape Town. Y'all know the dude. I don't know where he's at. I should check him out and have a look at him. People would love very much, would appreciate to see the similarities between him and Katleho. Whoever was running the channel So Well Nomics, pushing Thomas so well. Katleho is on that tip which Big Daddy Liberty was on. So we're here for the load shedding, not here for politicking.
Welcome to another episode of The Dissection. Load shedding is back. And it's back with a vengeance. A few weeks ago, before the State of the Nation address, it seemed there would be a weekend of load shedding, a weekend.
Sorry, let me just get some food to eat. We're just going to be watching. I'm not going to be talking much.
Weekend special. Your weekend special of load shedding. But this was quickly reversed. It would have been very bad, actually, if before the State of the Nation address, there was load shedding. It would have undermined the president's speech. It would have taken away part of the success story that he was selling in the State of the Nation. And I think as such, everybody worked hard to make sure that there would be no load shedding before the State of the Nation address. But this particular weekend was not to be the same. This particular weekend, we got the weekend special. Your weekend special. Brenda Fassie came back, not from heaven, but in load shedding. She's back in load shedding, weekend special. So we got a statement on Saturday from Eskom. The first statement read as follows. Following over 20 days of uninterrupted electricity supply, Eskom has encountered another temporary setback. As a result, stage 3 load shedding will be implemented from 5:30 today until further notice. Eskom will give an update on Sunday, the 23rd of February. That's today when I'm recording this. The second statement came out on the 23rd of February. And it went from bad to worse. It went from mild to peri-peri. And here's what Eskom said. Eskom regrets to announce that stage 6 load shedding was implemented at 1:30 a.m. due to multiple unit trips at Camden Power Station and will continue until further notice. The measure followed the implementation of Stage 3, necessitated by multiple unit trips at Majuba Power Station and a unit trip at Medupi that resulted in a loss of 3,000 megawatts in generation capacity, while planned maintenance accounted for 7.5 thousand megawatts. Additionally, to replenish energy reserves and prepare for the week ahead, Stage 6 load shedding was essential. Emergency reserves. Keep an eye on that. The minister gave a press briefing today at 11. And the press briefing basically was him apologizing for the load shedding, reminding everybody that there's been about 300 days of uninterrupted load shedding and giving an update. He made specific and explicit comments that they went to National Treasury last year to ask for funding because Eskom is in a difficult financial position and needs to strengthen the balance sheet. They need to strengthen the balance sheet, he said, to deal with issues of cash flow and liquidity. This is going to matter for this episode. And I want to talk about something that is very specific to the issues of funding of Eskom and how they relate to these breakdowns. I'm going to look at one of the questions around where the Eskom money is going. Before we look at that directly, we need to be quite honest. Load reduction. Let's talk about it. The reality is, even though we are now going to stage 6 of load shedding, part of our conversation around load shedding has been incomplete because we have not discussed robustly the issue of load reduction. The townships have been going through 4 hours of load shedding on a regular basis. If you look at some of the townships, they have 2 weeks of 4 hours of load shedding. That has been happening. consistently throughout this whole narrative of 300 days of no load shedding, etc., in the townships twice a week, they have been experiencing load shedding. So in as much as it was given a new name, a rose by another name is still a rose, or something to that effect.
Wait, so you're telling me, Mighty, that black people in the townships have been going through another load shedding that goes by another name? As you say that, I'm reminded of Ronaldo Hose, who says that white people are living in an unequal society and the Human Rights Commission must be abolished. Shall we abolish Eskom? Why are they not giving electricity equal to everyone? The reason would be there are others who are taxpayers and there are others who are not. So it's not apartheid, but it's classism.
Something to that effect. That's a Shakespeare quote, right? So I think we need to be cognizant of that reality as we have this conversation. Now to the main chat. I want to talk about the budget. The delayed budget. Remember that budget that the DA saved the day by blocking a VAT increase, and then the ANC said, no, we also wanted this thing to be delayed. Then all of a machiga, here we are. All of a jiga rather. Here we are today. This load shedding comes at a curious time. It comes just after the delay of the budget speech, which was going to announce a 13.3 increase in value-added tax. Remember, the increase is from 15% VAT to 17% VAT. That was the proposal. But it's not a 2% increase. Increasing something from 15% to 17% means that you've actually increased it by 13.3%. Right? Remember all of that stuff we used to do in school about percentage increase? So at this particular moment, I'm concerned about the timing. There's no coincidences in politics, and timing is always something that you should pay attention to. Timing and the money. You know, the great philosopher Karl Marx used to say, connect the dots. Connect the dots. I'm kidding, it wasn't Karl Marx, it was Pravin Gordhan. But he used to say that. You say if you connect the dots, follow the money, you will see. So I genuinely hope this is not a way of manipulating the public into supporting a 2% VAT increase. You know, there's this book I often refer to called Manufacturing Consent.
Please forgive me if I'm distracting. There's a PC behind me and I'm just preparing to edit this video. So let's just chill. I love you.
In fact, I have a copy. Here's the book, Manufacturing Consent, The Political Economy of the Mass Media. And this book is actually about how the powerful government, business use instruments of the media to manufacture consent, which is to make the public take a position or agree with the position that they want the public to agree with. And they have various tactics that they use in order to achieve that. So you should get this book. It's a very difficult to get book. You won't find it at exclusive books. I found it at Loot, but you won't find it in many places. But it's an...
Hey, yo, Mighty. I'm a dude who loves you, man. I appreciate you. I've learned so much from you. Can I borrow your book? Can you and I be friends? Can I get to know a fellow YouTuber? You'll be borrowing me books. I'll be borrowing you PlayStation games. If you're into photography, you'll borrow me books. I'll borrow you lenses. Whatever, man. It's whatever. Can we be homies? Can I come through? Can we pull up and have some lunch?
It's an important book to have. And I've mentioned before that we're going to be doing a book club. The book club is coming in March. It's going to be part of memberships. And we're going to do book club analysis, book club exclusive content for members. I'm going to give you more information on that. And one of the books that we're going to be looking at is Manufacturing Consent. We need to be aware of how we are being used by billionaires, whether they are Spalis or they're not Spalis, to manufacture consent. It's a critical book that you need to own, have in your bookshelf, work through, and you should get it. Loot.com, I think, is where, .coza is where I found this one, but it's a difficult book to get. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is I hope that this is not part of manufacturing consent. Why would there be a need to manufacture consent? Because Eskom needs more money. Eskom needs money, and there are some costs that you need to be aware of from last year, which show how much money Eskom needs in addition to what they're being allocated. There's something that you need to be aware of known as deviations. Last year, the National Treasury made a presentation at the Standing Committee for Appropriations, and they discussed this issue of deviations. And today, as load shedding returns with a bang, with a bite, I think it's time for you to know more about this issue of deviations. You know, the Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And it's in a scripture context, but I think it applies.
Hallelujah, amen. We love to hear Christ interwoven into everything, my brother. Don't be ashamed to bring him, for I am not ashamed of the gospel.
Across the board. When we don't have knowledge as the public, we can be played by politicians. They can manufacture consent. They can get us to make decisions which adversely affect us and benefit them. So before we go into the discussion about deviations, you need to know what is the primary energy breakdown and cost breakdown at Eskom. And I'm going to put these on the screen for you to look at as well. So the main energy sources for Eskom and power generation in South Africa come from 4 places. The first is coal power. 81% of the energy generated comes from coal power. And coal power stations cost Eskom 83.8 billion in the last year. 83.8 billion, 48% of the cost breakdown went towards coal power. 48%, 83.8 billion. Independent power producers, Abu Patrice Motsipe, these guys who, and Patrice, by the way, has gotten a lot of contracts in the IPP space. In fact, in that bid window, I think it was bid window 6, he got 50% with his consortium called Ikamva Consortium, where he's one of the entities there with Mainstream Renewable and Globlack and H1N1, something like that. Those are the companies that won that particular tender. So independent power producers produce 9% of the energy in South Africa, but they cost 27%, 47.8 billion. 47.8 billion. Do you see that? 9%, but 47.8 billion. 27% of the money Eskom spent on energy generation went to independent power producers. That should tell you that the rosy story that we've been told about independent power producers, it's not so rosy if you think about it. It's not so rosy. Nuclear, 4% of the energy comes from nuclear. Only 2.8 billion was spent. 2% of all of the revenue went towards nuclear. So it seems nuclear actually long term is an affordable option. Then you've got open cycle gas turbines. They contributed.
Stop. You're mighty. Did the economic freedom fighters once upon a time discourage the building of nuclear power stations? There's one in Cape Town. Is that the one you just spoke of now? Those costs sound incredibly low. I am distracted here. Did you say the cost and how much output there was of electricity? But back to my initial question. Did the EFF oppose this? You just said it seems now that long-term nuclear is good. Were you somebody who once opposed this? Could you take us into your confidence? You know, we were leftists out here. I don't know what your position currently is, but if we took a wrong position at some point, what is correct if we were wrong? Thank you.
But 2% from burning diesel, but the cost. Remember you said they're running out of reserves, out of supplies and all of that stuff. He was talking about diesel, not coal. Coal is cheap. It's the diesel that's chowing, because that 2% cost Eskom last year 23.9 billion, or 14% of the money that they spent on costs for energy. 23.9 billion, 24 billion basically. If you think about it, this, just in case you didn't know, open cycle gas turbines are power stations that use diesel as their primary resource. And that is a very expensive way of generating energy. And if you look at the cost of burning diesel in 2024, you can observe that 24 billion for 2% is not a good return on investment. And sometimes, you know, when there's rugby or something to that effect and they don't want any load shedding, they will go to this particular resource and burn diesel. But the costs are exorbitant. So now that you have a picture of the primary energy breakdown and the primary costs around energy generation, we need to talk about deviations. And this is what you need to understand about deviations. Before we go into it further, you need to know about supply chain management in Eskom and in government. So the supply chain management regulations of March 2005, which were issued in terms of the Public Finance Management Act, established, among other things, requirements for supply chain management systems, the establishment of supply chain management units, training of supply chain management officials, procurement of goods and services, disposal and letting of state assets, compliance with ethical standards, avoiding abuse of the supply chain management systems, and reporting of supply chain management information. Now, there's a provision in those supply chain management regulations which allows for procurement through deviations, right? And this is provided for in the Treasury regulations of Treasury Regulation 16A6.4. 16A6.4. It says the following: in a specific case, it is impractical to invite competitive bids. The accounting officer or accounting authority may procure the required goods or services by other means, provided that the reasons for deviating from inviting competitive bids must be recorded and approved by the accounting officer or accounting authority. Hey, here come the tenders. Here come the tenders with no competition. Can you see where the... Guys, I don't have a problem with slay queens, with yellow thighs. I don't have a problem with these Conka, Moloko, Zanzu people. But, hey, this is where the problems start. This is where the problems start. When you have these deviations. Yes. Deviations lead to situations which lead to complications which end up at Moloko. Slay queens love deviations, I'm telling you now. So, you know now that there's Treasury Regulation 16A6.4.
You're dope, man.
And it allows for procurement by other means. And procurement by other means includes limited bidding, a bidding process reserved for a specific group or category of possible suppliers, who the written price quotation within the threshold is not determined by National Treasury, and procurement that occurs in an emergency situation or urgent cases. So when there are breakdowns, that's when these things get triggered. When there are breakdowns, when there's emergency load shedding, things of that nature. Hey, so what happened with deviations last year? In Q2 of 2024, there were 1,632 deviations reported to the National Treasury. Of the 1,632 deviations reported, 1,304 deviation transactions were part of the top 20. Right? Of the 1,632 deviations reported, 1,304 of those were part of the top 20. The grand total amount of deviations amounted to 26 billion rands.
Wow.
The total amount of the top 20 deviations amounted to 25.5 billion. Now, what's got to do with Eskom, you may wonder? Eskom's deviation amount amounted to 23 billion, representing 91% of the top 20 deviations. When compared to the first quarter of 2024 deviations, what was observed around Eskom is that
these deviations, and the word deviation is like making exceptions to the rule. So normally we flow like this, but there are exceptional cases where we can use something else. When there are so many deviations, it sounds like the deviations are the law.
in Q1 of 2024, Eskom reported 18.66 billion in deviations. And in quarter two of 24, this increased to 23.33 billion, an increase of 4.67 billion in deviations. 40 billion of deviations to one company, Eskom. Some reasons that were given: the ongoing energy crisis necessitates emergency procurement for additional power resources. Coming from City Power was one of the big ones, and original equipment manufacturer maintenance. There's a company called KSB Pumps Private Limited. So what Treasury then said further to this,
who's that?
In their analysis of deviations by suppliers who were in the top 20. In quarter two of 2024, there were 1,214 suppliers who were engaged in deviations reported to National Treasury. Of the 1,214 deviations reported, 20 suppliers had a total rand value of 17 billion and among the top 20. KSB Pumps and Valves Private Limited had a total amount of deviations which amounted to 6 billion awarded by Eskom. Can you see this deviation issue, the burning of gas? Can you see now why I'm linking the budget announcement delay, the stage 6, and the deviations together?
You're joining the dots, as Karl Marx said.
Can you see how it is coming together? Here's my thought around deviations. First and foremost, I think Eskom should actually move aggressively towards making its own part. Eskom can hire engineers. There are lots of engineers coming out of universities who are highly talented, who can make this equipment. Elon Musk basically built Tesla, SpaceX on the back of going to universities, hiring highly qualified graduates, offering them good return on investment in terms of salaries, offering them space to be who all they could be. He hired a few senior engineers who had excellent qualifications to oversee this young army of engineers. But that was basically the story. And I know this because I have a book on this. In fact, I have two. Let's look at them. The first one is by Ashley Vance. It's somewhere, I can't find it. But here is the other one, which was written by Walter Isaacson. So this is another book that we're going to look at in the book club. Look, Elon Musk, so much is happening with this dude, and so much that we need to talk about. But we're going to look at it in the book club. It's important. Starlink, SpaceX, Tesla, Doge, Department of Government Efficiency, all of that. We need to look at all of that. It's part of the book club. You need to study these individuals who are great in history to understand what they are doing, to try to better be able to be strategic, also to learn from their successes. And as much as they may have problematic attributes, we need to learn from them. So anyway, we know from Elon Musk's story that it's possible to build a successful engineering entity by hiring the right talent. I don't think that right now, using KSB pumps to this extent is going to be of value. And it looks to me that Eskom has given KSB pumps and valves lots of power here, and this is coming at a significant cost. And when their things break down, they have to be called in to come and fix them. It looks like their parts do keep breaking down, because what we heard is that, look, this broke, that broke, this broke, that broke. Original equipment manufacturer parts are breaking, right? And this is what needs to be addressed. And to be honest with you, if I was an original equipment manufacturer, I wouldn't make things that last forever for Eskom. I wouldn't. Eskom would for themselves, because it saves them 6 billion. But I wouldn't, as an original equipment manufacturer, do that. And by the way, Eskom looked into, the National Treasury did some trends and observation analysis, which they presented to the Committee on Appropriations. And this is what they said. Increased deviation from the competitive bidding process was observed. And when they zoomed into Eskom and KSB pumps and valves, which took the bulk of deviations in quarter one and quarter two, they observed that very little can be done in the short term, because the supplier is an original equipment manufacturer, and only the supplier can maintain their custom-based equipment. Can you see can you see how it so what they wanted, what they also observed is that there was poor poor procurement planning, poor implementation of projects leading either to contract expansion or single source deviations, poor governance structures, contracts which resulted in audit findings which indicate irregular expenditure. Deviations, irregular expenditure, these companies that are making custom equipment that breaks, that then leads to the power plants. Can you see? Can you see what's going on? So I actually think that we need to be very aware of everything that is at play. Load shedding is a horrible experience. Water shedding is far worse, but load shedding is a horrible experience.
Hold up, Mighty, just a question. You've recently been saying that you're a capitalist. I think I remember hearing you on 2 videos, you saying that. I want to understand what you're suggesting about Eskom and South Africa, the government, developing its own capacity to have their own parts. And that can be done via these university engineers who you suggest could design these parts, manufacture them, assemble and maintain, and it would be for the government's benefit. They wouldn't be contractors. So a capitalist would say, no, contract that job out. There's somebody who is niche, who is very specific, who plays only on that narrow portion of the pitch, and they are highly specialized. They can do this. Contracting externally is the best way. You are saying build capacity internally, and that's what the socialist communists say. Could you school us on the contradiction there, if there is any? Should things be mixed, sometimes contracting, sometimes internal power? Because you've got Ronaldo houses and people who are, creepy lawyers looking for any deviation in your analysis, your mindset, your theology. And then they're going to say, ha ha! See? So that's that question for the idiots who are looking to call you a hypocrite, who are saying, hey, you are flip-flopping, you don't know where it's at. You say you're a capitalist, but you're suggesting the state should be doing engineering. That's a private matter, man. That's a thing for them really, really serious specialists. What do you mean? Please explain to them. Thank you.
It's costly. It costs a lot to be able to deal with those issues. And it's something that I think we need to talk about from looking at the generation side, the maintenance side, and the financial side. I sincerely hope that what's happening now is not manufacturing consent to get more money, which will end up in these, irregular tenders, in these processes which are deviations, and in the hands of slave queens at Moloko and Conka and all of these other places, these slave queens with yellow thighs. I've got no problems with them. But we know that we are seeing people driving big Range Rovers with no work experience, no employment prospects, just the fact that they know so-and-so who has a contract where. So I really think that this is a conversation that I've been a little bit lighthearted about it because, sometimes you have to find humor everywhere. Otherwise, you won't make it. I think that's why God gave us a sense of humor. But this issue of deviations, 40 billion last year in the first 2 quarters, meaning that if it continued into quarter 3, quarter 4, it was 80 billion. Can you see why the issue of VAT going up is important to government, but can you also see where the problems are in Eskom leading to these costs? And it doesn't look like they're being fixed. It's an issue. It's a conversation that I think needs to go on with more information and more scrutiny around these deviations and these entities that are getting billions from their contracts with Eskom. Till the next one, let's have a conversation in the comments.
Thank you. I've had one with you like this, and I hope you may have it with me one day, man. Peace out next time. I'll see you. I now understand what's happening with the load shedding. Thank you.